Hello and welcome to Till Death Do Us Blart, the world's only annual eternal podcast in which 5 goobers have decided to watch the same amazing movie.
Hey, fuck you, pal. I'm no goober.
Really, Griffin?
Okay.
Yeah, got you. We watch Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 every year, and we talk about it. I am Travis McElroy. Joining me, of course, are my brothers, Justin.
Hey, it's me, Justin. I'm here.
And Griffin.
What's up, pervs?
And my other brothers at this point, brothers in arms, brothers in Blart, Tim.
Howdy, cowboys.
And Guy.
Hello, it's me, Guy.
I don't know why no one but me got a last name, but I just realized I did that. I apologize, everyone. So this is our 3rd year. I think we now officially have enough episodes that people can binge.
Yeah, that's true.
We've done it. 3 episodes. We've made it. That's always the big milestone, you know, and people always celebrate when their podcast hits 3 episodes.
Congratulations to all of us.
We did it.
I'm curious to hear from Tim and Guy, because you all host, of course, the worst idea of all time for like another couple of weeks or so.
Thank you, Griffin, of My Brother and Me fame.
And you all have watched the same movie a lot of times. I mean, different movies, but a lot of times. And I'm wondering if is it your experience that Watch 3 is usually a pretty good one? Because I feel like my Watch 3 was a pretty good one.
Okay.
Dude,
I am
amazing. So glad you brought that up, because I feel like Justin and I were really on the same wavelength with this one. Hey, let me say this. Great fucking movie.
Really enjoyed it this year. really fucking loved it this year.
Really had a very fun time this year with Paul Blart Mall Cop 2.
Times 3? Amazing.
Yeah. We need to paint the scene because Tim and Guy, you two are inexplicably in Huntington, West Virginia.
Yes, we are.
Joining Justin's family for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I just drove up because I wanted to see Tim and Guy, so I'm in West Virginia now, too.
You all watched it together then?
Yes, I drove here specifically to watch Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 and record this, and then I'm driving back. So I drove 3 hours to get here. We're going to do basically 3 hours of movie watching and recording, and then I'm going to drive 3 hours back.
That makes this podcast the least respectful towards the environment, I would say, of 2017.
Definitely.
Man, I got 32 miles to the gallon in my brand new 2018 Subaru. Subaru for all your cool car needs.
There's been about 18 hours in the air for me to get here.
Just for this?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I was worried that it was because we were all in the same room. So we were like talking, we got to check in with Griffin, who's not in this room with us.
He's our control group.
And I think the camaraderie definitely added something, but let me just tell you, Watch 3 is a good one.
Yeah. I think it's this sweet spot of familiarity and like it's the gags are working, the gags that already work kind of work, like happy to see them, and then the meta textual layers that we've built have like added a little bit to it, and we got very craftsman like on this watch. Is like, you know, that's actually a really nice, he's putting in a good performance here.
This is excellent practical work.
Before we get too enthusiastic, I would like to go on the record that while this was not the most offensive experience with Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 I've had, I am by no means on the same level of enjoyment as you 4 absolute freaking maniacs.
That's fair. That is fair, Guy. You know, we'll get you on. We'll get you around
We all have to follow our own path. I also have to say that this is my first time watching it as a father. And so there's a lot of parental themes about, you know, your little one just growing up a little too fast. Henry's first birthday. Henry was born pretty much a few days after the last episode of Till Death Do Us Blart. And there's just, you know, he's about to turn 1, and just there's a lot of themes about growing up and how hard it is struggling with that. And it resonated with me in a way that I never thought this movie would actually resonate with a living human soul.
I mean, ultimately, this film is about guardianship in all of its forms.
Both others and yourself.
That's
taking
right.
care of others, taking care of yourself.
So true. The titular Paul Blart faces both challenges.
Yeah.
A mall, he has to guard. And in this case, this kind of his profession, he has to guard a Las Vegas convention center. And then he also has to guard his daughter, but then he also has to guard himself.
There's also a lot of themes about sort of classism between mall security and hotel security, or actual police officers, that I really feel like resonated just sort of in the current climate.
I want to get into that for a second, because on this watch, the hotel security guy, whose name is now escaping me,
Eduardo,
is so unnecessarily mean to Paul Blart, who is ostensibly a paying guest at the hotel.
It's actually an all-expenses paid trip, so Eduardo does not need to extend any respect towards this freeloading mall cop.
Do we want
That's how it
to
works.
go chronologically through this film? It seems like might be a good
I do.
idea.
Need we, Justin?
Can I tell you?
I'm asking. This is not me suggesting. I'm not trying to guide the ship.
Well,
here.
I do want to start something right at the top, because my favorite thing about watching it for a third watch was this is the one that, for me, no joke, a lot of things clicked and made sense, and I caught a lot of things that I haven't seen in the previous two watches.
Before you get into this, can I ask, have you been secretly watching this movie every other week in the hopes
Only in my mind's eye, guy.
Okay.
I've just been replaying it, and I've been sitting down in the den of my mind palace and punishing myself with my remembered. The first thing I wrote.
Before I hear your staggering observation, I do have to couch this a little bit and say this movie telegraphs future plot points so thuddingly and so concretely that the very idea that there is any subtext to this film whatsoever that wouldn't be immediately screamingly apparent on a first watch is inherently untrue. I mean, this is
No, let me
an
tell you.
invention.
Here's my theory that runs throughout all of it. They didn't cut a single frame that related to Paul Blart saving the day or comedy, quote unquote. But the heist, they left a lot of heist stuff on the cutting room floor. And I'll get to that because I think I have finally figured out she walks out of a party and she's in the place where the bad guys are.
I do want to state, I very much enjoyed this watch. I feel like we should have a more freeform discussion, but I do want to get into sort of the plot of the movie because I watched it in sort of maybe a peculiar, unorthodox way that I'm excited to sort of hop into, maybe a little bit deeper into this episode of deathBlart.
Tell us now. I'm sick of everyone precursoring all of these comments. Tell us now. Give us the juice.
Sure. I guess I'll just go ahead and tell you that I did, in fact, watch it synced up with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. That is not a joke. I watched the entire movie as underscored by Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. The Dark Side of the Moon will run you. It almost is perfectly 2 playthroughs of Dark Side of the Moon from start to finish. You press play right after the logos end, and you start to get sort of the cinematic, zoom in on the badge as the logo treatment appears. It'll run you about 2 times through the album, and boys, let me just say, it is a religious experience. There are so many points of perfect. It's perfect synchronicity to the point where it had to be intentional. Intentional.
Tell people the exact moment that you started so they can try this on their own.
Yeah, I mean, right after the sort of corporate logos appear, I think there's 2 or 3, and then it cuts to black, and then right as sort of the drums start, as it's playing this sort of fanfare, as we start to see the very tight close-up zooms on the badge as the logo starts to appear. As soon as you hear those drums, that's when I hit play. Had the audio for the movie turned down to about 15%, but I had the subtitles turned on, and I had Pink Floyd just cranked all the way up. Do want to say I've never listened to this album all the way through before, and so that was just sort of nice. And I think that's probably responsible for why I enjoyed the movie so much, because I was paying such close attention. I also should say that I had to watch it this way or else I would have lost my mind, because I watched it at like 11 o'clock by myself in my office, and my lamp light bulb had just burnt out, and so I was watching it in just pitch black stillness.
Amazing.
So you were like in basically a like sensory deprivation chamber, except for your eyes and ears.
It was just me, it was Kevin, and it was Floyd. And we just sat there together, and we sort of... I took a lot of notes, and I'll try to highlight them as we go, just sort of the moments where the album really perfectly synced up. But I'm not joking. It was... in my opinion, I know that I did this year because I needed to introduce some freshness into the equation. I cannot imagine watching the film without Dark Side of the Moon underneath it.
So just to get right into it, first thing I want to give credit to, we talked about as we were watching it, which I'm not going to say anymore because I think it'll start to get redundant. But the film has 2 gags that, like his mom getting hit by a milk truck, which happens in the opening moments, is very savage, but it is staged well and lands. And Tim and Guy and I did happen to watch a film called Sex and the City
You
2
are
last
kidding
night for a special bonus episode of Worst City of All Time that'll be up at some point if it's not up already. But we did watch that last night, and that movie theoretically takes place in Abu Dhabi and does take a full calendar hour to get out of New York and into Abu Dhabi. So, like, this film lasts 4 minutes and 30 seconds before they're like, we promise Vegas. Here is Vegas.
And that's
Here's
with
Las
credits
Vegas.
included.
So I appreciate that from Paul Blart.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I took a note, and we've talked about this, the horrible sort of conspiring of the Shadow Man to ruin Paul Blart's life, and they get through that real fast. And I did take a note that it is probably the fastest like death mourning sequence of any movie I've ever seen, where mom gets hit by a milk truck. We get 4.5 seconds of Paul Blart looking sad on a couch, and then and then it is referenced, I guess, one more time later on in the movie when the main villain is inexplicably trying to make Paul Blart sad instead of trying to make Paul Blart dead with gun bullets.
Can I say, though, about that moment real quick? He's trying to make Paul Blart sad, and, like, we've seen Paul Blart sad throughout this movie many times, but for some reason in that moment, he's fucking bulletproof to the sadness.
Yeah.
It just doesn't affect him. He's hardened. I love this movie. I wrote down in that opening thing, I noticed it's a little thing, but they're married for 6 days. She had already changed her last name to Blart. It says Amy Blart on the letter that sent him. So in that 6 days, there clearly was some
filed the
passion and some
paperwork.
excitement in the
She
beginning.
was excited about
Because
it.
it took a while. It takes a while. I want everyone to know, I wrote down where the room laughed and where Justin laughed.
Yeah, there's a wider gulf there than I would like. The
whole room.
You mentioned 2 guaranteed laughs in the or you, Justin, you referenced the mom getting hit by the milk truck as a
which landed for me, and then he saves a little boy, and there's about 3 minutes of goading from the mom trying to get the boy to hug Paul Blart, and it takes longer than it should, and they spend more time on it really than they should, which is great.
I
and then the boy
misremembered this.
slaps him instead of hugging him.
I thought a nut shot was coming for sure. I could not remember.
Well, that's what comedy is. It gives you expectations and it subverts
that's just
them.
it. The little boy slapping an adult man was very good for me.
Very
this time.
good.
I don't know how I forgot that one as well, because that surprised me. That caught me off guard. I was like,
right?
yes.
I couldn't remember what I was like. I know that there's a moment of violence coming, but it just, a slap is so degrading. Like, I can't think of a less, like a more insulting move. I'd rather get punched in the face 8 times than slapped once.
He fucking drills him too. I mean, he really.
I mean,
him.
I don't want to steer the entire podcast episode in this direction, but Griff, I just am so insatiably curious about your experience with Dark Side of the Moon with this film.
So,
I mean, I've done Dark Side of the Rainbow on more than one occasion. I know how it goes. It's a magical thing, but you've discovered a genuine media gem. You're the first person to do it. You're a pioneer out there.
Speak to Me, the opening track on the album, it's just like heartbeats and some British folks talking while sort of themes from the album sort of play underneath it. There's not a lot of sync up there, but Breathe in the Air, the second track on the album, has sort of this long, very sad intro that is like a pretty good like background for Paul Blart's life falling apart. And the lyrics to that song kick on, I am not kidding you, the frame that the mom gets hit by the car. The frame that the mom gets hit by the car.
Amazing.
And it's just a really good sort of sad, sort of melancholy song behind this, saddest introduction to a movie ever. And it's still playing a little bit after he gets the letter invitation to Vegas. And the real big benefit there is that you are still listening to this song and you do not have to listen to Best Day of My Life, which is the movie, what the movie decided you should be hearing at that moment.
My only exposure to that song has been from a Coca-Cola commercial that played in New Zealand using that track.
Yeah, they made it for Coca-Cola commercials, I'm pretty sure.
I honestly thought that was true, without any hint of irony or facetiousness. I don't know who it's by, or if it's even by anyone. I kind of assumed it was by the Coca-Cola marketing department.
Or AI, is some AI. Now, I will say the next track on the album, On the Run, is this sort of high octane, just sort of pulsating songs. It would be perfect for a heist scene later on, and it does not really match up so great with
have
him
you thought
checking
about
in at the hotel.
Have you thought about recutting Dark Side of the Moon so it perfectly syncs up to plot? Does that work? Does that still count?
We don't want to recut Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. You can't.
Yeah, you can't change that.
Of the two pieces of art, one of these is obviously canon, and the other is very flexible.
Oh, that would be fun. What if you just put Dark Side of the Moon on, but hit shuffle and saw how it's synced up?
It's hit or miss, but there is a bit where he's checking at the hotel, and holy Christ, did that scene need to be 14 fucking minutes long?
It's so
Holy
long.
shit.
We give it such credit for getting to Vegas, and it's like, well, pump the brakes. Momentum's building a bit too quick. Let's get a very extended check-in sequence.
Can I jump in this because I don't want to miss it? This is the start of one of my new theories that I came up with. That I was like, oh, that's true, and it's never stated, but it makes so much sense. And I have a theory that Lane repeatedly, every time a young woman checks into the hotel, goes through the same wooing process.
Haunting process.
Well, yes, but in order to bed her, I guess hoping that she's the one that will free him from his ghostly prison. But at the very least, every move he makes in this series of meeting Maya, right down to the buying her a snow globe in the gift shop of the hotel.
Or sunscreen.
Or sunscreen is something that he does every time there is a young woman. He is a terrible womanizer. Yeah. Like, that is my theory about
And I'm glad he's dead and that his soul has to walk the earth for a million years.
The only pushback I would have on this theory is that Lane, if this is his sole motivation, sticks around to help Maya. Is that the daughter's name? Yeah.
Maya, yes.
Out of the bind that her and her father find themselves in, as they've accidentally stumbled into this art heist.
This is
they have soul bonded, and there is a process by which Lane has to sort of indoctrinate the human spirit that is still on our realm, so that he can then enter their fleshy body and walk around in it. It's a lengthy process.
Also, he uses the snow globe to capture her soul to feast upon and extend his own sort of life energy. And the moment where she shatters the snow globe, which, by the way, when she shatters the snow globe to use the wires to hack the door, first of all, that's great in and of itself. There is a half-second long reaction shot from Lane looking very sad.
Okay, this is fucking strange, Griffin. Like, we are I think
we're across the country from each other.
Yeah, there is a telepathic sync here because that fucking half second of Lane slayed us because he gives a choice reaction.
Because he's sad that the snow globe he bought was. He does this like, oh.
But the reaction is like she didn't like it.
It's more than that because the snow globe breaking is done in super slow motion, and then we cut to Lane for no reason. We don't need to cut to him to see his reaction, but we do. That is playing in full 24 FPS.
Yeah.
Normal speed. He gives his performance for, I would estimate, somewhere between 12 and 16 frames, about 3/4 of a second, and then we're back to slow motion footage of the globe. And it is so jarring but so brief that if you blink, you miss it, but if you see it 3 times, you are confused.
I have blinked the last 2 times, the last 2 years, because this time it really got me.
So Justin laughed at the RoboCop line. I wrote that down. RoboCop's not real. Donna.
But
I had a big.
Well, we need to be careful because we keep saying things that make sense if you've watched this movie 3 times before.
So Donna says, I mean, I hope they've listened to the other episodes. We talk about Donna every time because she does put in a pretty good performance. And she says, she said, you've got to be delivering the keynote speech. Like, he's got to be the most impressive officer there unless RoboCop shows up. Paul Blart says, I would stand down for RoboCop. And she says, he ain't real. And then Paul Blart says, well, I know, but I would still stand. And then where it really lands is she reemphasizes, he ain't real.
Yeah. But I do want to say, this was a big revelation.
I will say also, Donna, while enjoyable, a little bit of a black stereotype character.
Big time.
Yeah, for sure.
A little bit
I mean, there's
grody.
lots of stereotypes in this here film.
I had a big revelation watching it this 3rd time. She never says, it's you. She says, somebody very special. And she does this kind of like point thing, which he takes as she means me.
No, it's a farce. There's a lot of really good farce qualities.
Yeah, but Donna
here.
never says the words, it's you.
Really
Travis,
good, fast qualities.
don't-
Really good, you reckon?
But I'm saying,
Don't be a Guy Montgomery on this. So in the film that we're watching in West Idea,
well, I think they want the audience to think that too. But
I know. Look, let me just say this. Guy Montgomery is convinced that in We Are Your Friends, Zac Efron and Emily Ratajkowski may or may not have sex. We literally see everything except for a macro of the penetration. And he leaves it to the imagination. There is no way that you could see this film even once, Travis McElroy, and not take away that Donna is saying he is delivering
no,
the
she's
keynote.
just saying that there's a very exciting person delivering the keynote.
Let's not get hung up here.
I'm just saying, maybe
two-
she doesn't mean him.
Two real quick things. When Paul Blart does finally get to the front of the line, he yells "Yallo-ha," which is the first of many sort of garbage, gibberish, dookie things that falls out of this dude's idiot mouth. But it does perfectly sync up with a bit in On the Run where somebody screams "yeah." And they also, he does like a wheezing laugh at one point, and it sort of matches this this escalating synth. There's thematically it doesn't make a lot of sense, but like sonically there's a lot of synchronicity.
That wheezing laugh is a real killer for me. We've just enjoyed Donna's sort of, befuddled RoboCop line, and then Paul Blart just takes all the air out of the room by doing it.
It's wild to me. It almost feels like that some of this film was like done in a rush, or they were trying to get to 90 minutes, because there's a lot of things where like, I don't think Kevin James is like a comedy genius, but I think he at least understands the basics of what is working and what isn't working. And there are a few times where like, if he was watching this, he would know like, that's a brick. I posted up, I opened my mouth to do something and nothing happened.
You do not need to worry about Kevin James seeing this movie and having that moment of self-reflection.
No,
I can assure you.
Anybody, in the director of the movie, whoever, like, you would know that Kevin James was like trying to, and you know what happens to the best of us. Sometimes you open your mouth and you think something dope's going to come out and you post up a brick. It happens.
Yeah.
But there's some
Chicken chow lane, for example.
Chicken
chow lane is nothing.
Right.
It's nothing at all.
I think when you put it in the context of Yaloha and the sort of broad cultural spectrum of puns that Paul Blart is attempting to make throughout the film, suddenly we're looking at something greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's no consistent... I would agree with you if there was a consistent way that people reacted to it and then a payoff joke that he, like, totally lands.
I want to jump forward a little bit, and because I took a note here, and this was not necessarily about how well the movie synced up to the album, but rather was sort of a side effect of me watching the movie with subtitles on, because when Eduardo is introduced, Davina, is that how her name? Davina, I could not hear the film. When Eduardo shows up, they are speaking, and at one point during the conversation, he says something in Spanish, which the subtitles translates to speaks in Spanish. The subtitles couldn't put in. It's literally the only line of Spanish dialogue in the whole film, and it is like 5 words tops. And the captions writers were like, "This movie's not worth the effort."
Is it where he calls Kevin James the fat guy in Spanish?
Potentially, I don't know. I
El
couldn't
Gordo.
hear it.
He says El Gordo, and it's
Okay.
like, really, dude? Like,
Couldn't even do that. Couldn't even caption that one out.
El Gordo Muchacho.
This one, it has never bothered me before, but Travis touched on it, but I just want to pound it into the ground. Eduardo walks up to Paul, Eduardo sees Paul Blart, walks up to Paul Blart, and just starts dunking on him for no reason at all. Like, Paul Blart does not do anything to incite this. He is a hapless, overweight man who is a guest of this hotel,
and he doesn't even rise to it. Like, the guy's being so mean, and Paul Blart continues to be nice.
The wild thing is, literally every other character this man has had an interaction with would have 100% reason to dunk on him. Like, maybe they're telling Eduardo, like, "Hey, I know how good you are at dunking on people. Could you please go dunk on that guy? He's a real asshole."
The reason, isn't it because Eduardo sees Paul Blart as a threat?
Yeah, I think
that's gotta be it.
You're glossing over the fact that Davina, originally in the film, Paul Blart misconstrues her for being in love with him, which Eduardo sort of indulges in that fantasy.
Not
and
just construes, I think.
He construes. It's true. Because throughout the movie, like, by the end, she's calling him Mia Moore, which is my love. Like,
No, they're deeply in love. Deeply in love.
But I think the way that Eduardo reacts to him is how, like, the preppy jock bully would react in an 80s movie to, like, John Cusack, and, like, clearly the chemistry is between John Cusack and the woman, and the preppy feels threatened, except, like, This is a comedy movie, and none of that is happening. That is a plot that is not playing out.
Okay,
Eduardo and Davina are in their own movie.
Let us for a moment pivot while you're on this about confused genre and sort of types of film that this is making. And I know that we have covered this in previous episodes, numerous as they are, of Till Death Do Us Blart. The fact that the director of this film has in fact made 2 films, which only he seems to want to stitch together at the end, is so shockingly, they're so contrasted. Like the color grading, the shooting style, the acting performances, the casting
Specifically
choices.
the score.
The soundtrack.
They have a score for the heist score that they return to. They put a yellow filter or whatever those things you put in front of the camera are, and they
to
get
let you know it's fucking heist time. It's heist o'clock.
time. And suddenly we are in Ocean's 14 or 15. I don't know where they got up to. Every time we cut away from Paul Blart, and Paul Blart's not even sort of, you forget that you're watching Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. You're like, all right, Ocean's 17. That's great. I didn't know I bought a ticket for 2 movies.
Let's move on to talk about the first sort of introduction of the heist, because I mean, there's 2 things I want to talk about. The first is obviously that fucking computer.
Yeah.
That fucking computer that folds out of a small box and there's 5 screens, and all of a sudden this dude's on a fucking Alienware experimental gaming rig
With one.
We actually got
shitty
we got an
keyboard.
email about that from someone who called themselves only Citizen Blart, but private information they included that I am not allowed to share does convince me that they actually worked on the film. And they said that, like, the computer screens, there were people on the VFX team that spoke up and said, like, it was ridiculous, and they were trumped, and then they said, you know what, then more of it, and they were required to add more screens and stuff to
Well, like the visual effects team went, fuck you, if you're not going to listen to us, we're going to go...
No, the other way around. The VFX
okay.
team was like, I don't think this looks good. And they were like,
There
no, it'll look better if we add more to it.
Add 3. You want to keep talking?
There were a few moments in this movie where I wish the VFX team had been a little bit more vociferous in there.
Well, they talked about, like, in building the movie that so much more than you could possibly imagine was done with green screen. They said a lot of, like, the casino backgrounds and stuff, it was like digitally, like, added stuff to it and touched up and
let's
increased.
talk about that foam gun, because there's a bit towards the end of the movie where he gets the foam launcher and he sticks the guy's hand to the wall so he doesn't shoot him, and then he tries to shoot Vincent with it, and foam just kind of dribbles impotently from the tip, from the meatus of the gun, and for whatever reason that foam is CGI, and it's like, why do we need CGI of just brown liquid dripping out of a gun? Why could we not sort of get practical on that one?
Some practical goop.
I also, the way that foam behaves, are you saying, first of all, Griff, is that a combination of some of those times are practical and some of them CGI, or it's CGI?
It's all CGI. He shoots the gun at Vincent, nothing comes out except a dribble of inexplicably CGI foam that looks like
when
dookie.
it hits the guy's arm and pins him against the wall, I remember thinking, just because of the way that this foam is moving, is operating, like, the film should be about this foam. This foam is an amazing
Yeah, it's
invention.
flubber, whatever this shit
This is the new flubber.
Well, it should really be about his launcher that he uses, because Paul Blart shoots, I kid you not, 4 different things out of the same high-tech security guard launcher, including beanbags, marbles, foam.
He does not shoot the marbles. The marbles dribble out. The marbles are obviously not meant for the weapon.
Which, by the way, let's get that joke going twice, guys. The second, I mentioned 2 things. The second thing we have to talk about in this heist thing, which I did not sort of pay attention to until this watch, is at the very end of this first sort of establishing heist scene where the crew is together and they get out their dumb computer. A woman in the room with the thieves says, here's an updated map that's going to show us where all the art is. There's something like 13 pieces. And then on the television in the room, a 3D map of the hotel with, 13 red dots appears on it. Everybody in the room looks at it for, I kid you not, 2 seconds. And then Vincent says, all right, let's get going. Like,
hey, I worked really hard on that map. Could we all just, like, take 1 second? No, we got it.
It doesn't just take, it's not just taking advantage of the hard work that this woman did putting this map together. It's like, are you guys sure you know the plan? Because you looked at the map for 2 fucking seconds.
We also had a Justin laugh, not to skip over it, but when Paul Blart says he fell asleep raking leaves. Justin laughed at that, and also the whole room laughed when Vincent said, "Let's see if I bankrolled the right NSA agent."
Oh, yeah,
that was us. Okay,
yeah, it's not a funny joke.
That should not count.
No, I'm putting an asterisk next to it. We laughed at the movie.
When Justin laughed at the line, I fell asleep once raking leaves, he laughed long enough to then pause, think about it again in his head, and laugh a second time at the same
I wanted to go over it again to make sure that I was on point, and I was right. It was very good.
We definitely appreciated the NSA agent gag last year. That was very good.
I will say, along with noticing things in the room for the first time, so there's crates in the room, right? And Justin, I think, pointed out, like, how did they get those crates out there without anyone in the hotel noticing? And then I realized, like, so Hank, the guy who's posing as the security guy, comes in and they're all like cocking their guns and super, like, ready to kill whoever walks in the door. There's room service in the room. The woman sitting at the table has like a coffee service set up. Somebody delivered. So they're dead in one of those crates. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Shit. Oh, I shouldn't have ordered room service, Vincent. That one's on me.
One last thing about the heist is they're stealing art, and they specifically reference that they're stealing a Van Gogh, which I've never been to Vegas. I don't know if it's standard protocol for hotels to have works by Vincent van Gogh in them, but I'm willing to suspend my disbelief that much. What I'm not willing to suspend is the fact that they have art from Vincent van Gogh in this hotel, and the main antagonist in this film is also named Vincent. It's
that was your breaking point?
It's just ridiculous. It's preposterous to me. They couldn't think of we're stealing Monet's and my name's Monet. Like, you couldn't. We got to keep going because we're not even close to halfway through, and I know that because I have broken down my notes based on tracks in Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon.
Griff, real quick question: when we are investigating the crates, etc., what's playing then?
So Time is playing during this one, and Time is just sort of a long track. It opens up with these very scary alarms that I'm watching it by myself in the dark. It scared the shit out of me both times that it popped up. But it was mostly just undercurrent for exposition. Not the best sync, but I do want to say, next track, Great Gig in the Sky, fucking killer song. It's got a bunch of like nice saxophones, and then it ends with this sort of choral breakdown of this woman just delivering this very powerful solo, and that starts the instant that Paul Blart begins his segue dance, and there is something so beautiful and poetic about his fluid, graceful movements to this just very passionate vocal performance that's happening right behind him. Also, he dodges the first car that comes at him while he's on the subway, and he says, or the Segway, he says, oh. He says that right when the singer just sort of ejaculates this, oh, and then he gets hit by another car and says, oh, again, and it happens again.
Holy shit. We have a bunch of Justin laughs kind of right in a row here.
It's almost like I was enjoying a funny film.
Justin laughed at the horrible ADR line. The fat guy ruined it.
Oh my God, the ADR lines are insane in this movie.
You would think if you have ADR, you want to make it as like camouflage as possible. Like it needs to blend seamlessly. It's wild.
But there's more comedy by making it not camouflage.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Because then you're doing something else.
During the Cirque du Soleil scene, one of the performers, I guess, says, "Who is this guy? What's going on?" They are not shown. It's just like a pretty far away shot of this like chaotic scene taking place, and we just hear this voice that pierces the silence of, "Who is this guy? What's going on?"
You can actually see the studio note on that one where they're going, "Hey, isn't it weird that Paul Blart is in the middle of the Cirque du Soleil performance and everyone is acting like he's not?" I know how we'll paper over that.
We need a Band-Aid for that.
We had a Justin laugh that I want to also reference as something that really bothered me about the movie. So there's the guy who's like, "That's a great belt. How much you pay for that belt? Do you have a belt guy?" And do you have a belt guy? You got to have a belt guy. Justin laughed. And later in the fight, one of the security guards, it's like the big hallway fight, one of the security guards is using a belt as a weapon, but not the belt guy.
A different guy.
A different guy.
I would like to reverse engineer some logic for this decision, which is that they have so many locked and loaded Chekhov's guns throughout this film. Like when they go through the security guards, what's it called?
The Weapons Expo?
The Weapons Expo, and they're showing everything. It's like, this is going to show up.
I believe Justin called it the Chekhov gun show.
Yeah, there you go, the Chekhov gun show. And then they're like, it's too neat, it's too tidy. let's scramble their brains with one deliberately misplaced Chekhov's gun so that people don't realize how easy it is for us to write this movie.
You are extending such a lot of appreciation and positivity
It's not
towards the filmmakers.
appreciation. I'm just trying to qualify how that might have slipped through the cracks.
And God bless you for that. That's why I love this man, Guy Montgomery, positive, and he believes in people.
I have to say, because you referenced the security guard sort of tech showcase. Do you guys want to guess what song was playing during this tech showcase?
I'm trying to remember what tracks you haven't mentioned yet.
Oh
no. No, you go.
It was Money.
Holy shit.
Guys, I'm not kidding. Money. This was the first moment of just like, this was the first like, oh, okay, well, this was definitely intentional because it's Money while they're all shopping through all of this security gear. And then there's a quick cut to the art thieves starting to set up the heist, which like perfect
Oh my
again.
God.
And then it like really kicks into this breakdown as Paul goes in to test out the beanbag launcher, which makes it seem like badass shit's about to happen, which it doesn't. But at the end of that breakdown is this like sort of final refrain into the last verse of the song that's like down money. While those 4 notes hit, fucking Eduardo picks up the gun and shoots the targets. I'm not kidding you guys. 1, 2, 3,
No.
4. Like
No way.
fucking
No way.
perfectly. And then there's another heist scene to like finish out the song. It was. If you don't believe me, I guess you can go just watch this one scene from the movie, and it starts when they're like meeting up by the poolside. But like, holy shit, guys!
Griff, by you adding money to that scene, like this has actually become quite an intense
Yeah.
socio-political commentary on how weapons creators and our whole economy is underpinned by this inherent evil, and they're no different to art thieves, which is a pretty loaded commentary unto itself, that these people are stealing these things which are supposed to be our ultimate sign of humanity and culture.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it's sort of, are we overvaluing the art? Are we overvaluing the weapons? Is art war? What the fuck's going on? We're watching Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 again. There is an existential...
It reaches a
recognition
fifth
in
level.
there.
Yeah, you've somehow managed to make Blart art.
You can't spell Blart without art.
We also had a Justin laugh on the con movie hug, which then evolved
The
into
con
a room
hug is
laugh.
good.
It
Yeah.
evolved into a room laugh. I'm not going to leave
Con
Justin out.
movie, thank you. The con movie hugs him, and he's hugging everyone as a way of saying thank you. And on the one hand, like again, the con movie character is not unlike Donna, like a very easy, lazy, like
Caricature.
he's foreign. Get it? But
Well, because they do that too with the guy who's the head of the security with like the shaved out head, where it's like once again it is a caricature, and like the same with like they're all of them are caricatures.
But con movie gives him a hug, and Paul Blart says he really needed it, and it's actually like a surprise,
a sweet
surprisingly
moment.
sweet. Like,
Yeah.
thank you. I've been having a rough day. I really needed it. And con movie gives him another hug, and then Kevin James, to his great credit, I think ad libs like, oh, there's a little kiss on the shoulder there. Like it's good.
It's the one ad lib that Kevin James lands in the entire movie. The rest of the ad libs he offers, you can hear the sound person trying to turn down.
Get the boom away
guy,
from him.
He's like, can we just edit out that line that he...
We also had a Justin laugh.
Here we go, man. This is just about savaging me. I think it's because
No. This is helping me remember what I originally laughed at.
Yeah, this is
Travis
Travis.
seated
This is
next to
Travis's
me.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Exactly.
When the real cop kind of mutters under his breath, "Is there anyone that loves you?" It's just such a savage
we
moment.
can't keep just throwing out these moments apropos of nothing. We have to frame it a
So
little
here's what
bit.
happens. Paul Blart goes back to the hotel to talk with his daughter Maya, and she's not there. And the bath is still full, and the candles are still lit. And he panics and assumes something has happened and calls down to security. Security comes up. He tells Eduardo, in once again what I thought was a really funny highlighting of Eduardo being a bully to him and Paul Blart having nothing but respect for Eduardo. Eduardo says, "We're going to find her. I'm going to work hard at this despite our differences." And as he walks away, Paul Blart says, "Our differences?" Like, Paul Blart is unaware that they have beef.
Yeah.
But
so
then it turns
There's
out
no
that
way
he is
you
fine.
have to. Travis was taking 20 minutes to set up this one line that he already said.
Yeah, so then a real cop shows up and is asking Paul Blart, like, "Is it possible she's with your wife?" And he goes, "I don't have a wife." He goes, "Girlfriend."
Well, hold on, because even before that, he says, he's trying to establish motive. He says, "Have you got any money?" And Paul Blart says, "Define a lot of money." And he says, "Any." He says, "No." then he says, "Are you an important person?" And you just see Eduardo behind him in frame, just shaking his head.
no.
So the cop moves forward. Have you had trouble with the spouse? He says, no wife. Girlfriend? No. And then another separate cop goes, "Does anybody love you?"
Hey guys, is this movie a good, funny movie?
It might be.
You know what? It honestly, we talked to the director who made this film. I think wanted to, and Tim agreed with this. Like, wanted to show that he could make an action movie, because there are scenes where like there's a fight between all the security guards and all the criminals that Paul Blart didn't kill because he acts non-lethally. And it goes on for probably about 5 solid minutes, and it's not very funny. It's just like framed and shot like
But
a
it's
real
not
action.
unskillfully done.
No,
either.
and I think
Yeah,
this
great
guy-
cinematography, really,
and I think
for an
the-
action movie.
The guy wants to show like, hey, listen, I can do an action movie too. And I think that's where the movie sort of loses its footing. I think that's when I stopped enjoying it. I think.
It starts to lose coherency, is because then consistency that we have seen up till that point like fades away.
No, but we are in the world of one of the huge sort of chinks in consistency or logic within the film, which is that, first of all, Paul Blart is meant to be portrayed as he's a buffoon, but a semi-competent security guard. He returns to his hotel room, no sign of a breaking and enter, like no sign of a being in or nothing to suggest that there's been a forced entry. Immediately panics on account of his daughter being missing, and then goes into a paranoid frenzy. Calls up the police, as we've just discussed, to come along and rip out some fire gags, depending on who you were in the room at the time. And then the movie marches on and on and on, and to the point where his daughter is in actual jeopardy, has been taken by the villain, who's acting, up a storm, but that's all by the by. And as we discussed in the room, Paul Blart is like, 5 missed calls from the daughter I was paranoid about, but 6 hours ago. I think that it's going to be okay. And she's
on the phone saying,
Literally
"I'm in trouble. People are following me. I saw something I shouldn't have seen." And Paul Blart says, "I've dealt with this situation before. It's all bark, no bite. Don't worry about it."
What are you like? He literally said it's not even like a misunderstanding. He understands what's happening, but is super chill about
Yeah,
it.
no,
It is
you're
in a-
fine, baby. You're fine. I'll see you later. Bye.
In an effort to jump ahead of some of this like bad exposition, there's this scene that we've just described of him sort of being confronted by the hotel staff, and they're all kind of dunking on him collectively. They're forming the Monstars with Eduardo about sort of the differences between real security staff and real cops and dumb mall cops. Straight into the scene that's all about sort of his daughter going to UCLA and leading this different path through life than the one he lived, existing in this other class, and he's worried about what that means about their relationship and the distance it's going to cause between them. Just sort of about these differences between his life and the lives of other people that he's maybe jealous of. The song behind that is Us and Them. It is pretty good.
Holy shit.
Pretty good. But we have to move forward into one of the greatest moments of synchronicity in the film, which is we do also have to mention that the scene where the Blart tries to convince the woman that she's overreacting from the security guard who's sexually harassing her. That's no
Fuck that
good,
scene.
guys.
Getting
Yeah.
worse every year.
Do you know what?
This is the worst possible year. It's getting worse.
A variant of this conversation has been happening nonstop since the Harvey Weinstein thing. It's a very loud time at the moment, and we are all going to come out the better for it. And we flagged that scene at the start of our journey, saying this is a really fucked moment in the film. And now it has risen to the point where this scene would absolutely have been cut, or the movie would not have come out
It is a
this
scene
day and age.
just to in case you don't watch this movie every year. A drunken security guard is hitting on a woman who is just at the bar.
Adam Sandler's wife.
Adam Sandler's wife. thank
Jackie
you.
Sandler.
Not in fiction, but like just sitting by herself at the bar, and Paul Blart comes over and is like, "I think this is a misunderstanding. I think you were just lonely." And she's like, I literally told him to go away. He's literally drunk and I want him to go away. And Paul Blart goes, I think maybe he just thought you were lonely. And probably the worst part, it gives her pause like, Maybe he did just think I was lonely. Like,
and
fuck off.
Worse than that, he also says he's a good guy, and I think that maybe you just took it wrong.
Anyway,
and
Griff, I feel like you're on the way to a happier
Fucking-
place, so take the reins.
Here's the happier place. So the guy who was too drunk was supposed to deliver the keynote, so instead Blart's going to do it. He's hyping himself up as Any Color You Like is really, really getting going. Just a really hype solo there as he's just jumping up and down. And then he starts to hyperventilate, and the song starts coming down a little bit into its resolution. He says, I'm going to go get some air. He walks outside. The door shuts behind him, and Brain Damage starts playing.
Fuck off. For the bird scene?
For the fucking bird scene. He
Holy shit.
He steps foot onto the lawn outside. The lunatic is on the grass. Like, y'all, I'm not kidding. And that song has these two perfect peaks, right? As it sort of builds up to the chorus that has the titular Dark Side of the Moon. The first one really gets going just as the bird launches its first salvo of attacks. And at this point, I'm having a fucking religious experience to this. I've never experienced anything quite like this, where I went from thinking a movie is very, very bad to thinking a movie is now an essential part of my life. More so even than the fact that I have to watch it every year for this Eternal podcast. I mean, it also helps that the scene is very, very, very good, and it's still very funny that the Piano Man, who might also be the Shadow Man, does nothing to step in.
Griff, sorry, can I just quickly ask a question? Because you are now the most qualified person on God's green earth to answer this. The lunatic for which the band is talking about, do you think they're talking about the bird or the Shadow Man himself playing the piano?
I mean, it could also be talking about Blart, because there's another part of the song that says the lunatic is in my head. Maybe the bird's not real. Maybe the Piano Man's not real.
Fucking hell.
That is a good call, because they never set one. Tranquility Gardens aren't a thing. So there's like or Contemplation Garden. So it's never. We were talking like for a movie that sets up literally everything. I'm allergic to oatmeal. Everything. They're just cool with like. And by the way, here is a garden of contemplation and a bird that's native to Africa.
Yeah. The only thing that undercuts this perfect experience is Kevin James yelling "Hefeweizen" at the bird to scare it away, which again is just dookie nonsense. Garbage belongs in a dumpster.
But it's part of the canon of broader cultural puns his character is trying to make.
Fair.
I'd like to insert myself in this conversation by saying I'm on the IMDb page for Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 right now. And just, out of idle curiosity, I've pulled up the trivia. Someone has inserted this, and I would like to know what everyone's thoughts or level of knowledge is pertaining to this piece of trivia. It reads as such. A producer has stated that a character called the Shadow Man was going to appear in the film. The character was going to be a godlike being who put Paul Blart through his trials. After a great amount of discussion, it was decided that they removed the character, seeing that the studio wanted to keep the film grounded in reality.
Thank you to whoever put that in.
That was definitely handled.
That is a slam dunk.
I have to say, though, it doesn't stop there, because the next scene that happens is Paul Blart walking up to take the stage to deliver his speech. And it is the first moment where something good happens for Paul Blart. He does this great speech and really gets the crowd going as Eclipse, the final song on the album, is just playing this beautiful fanfare of just like, we've done it, we've really done it. And then that song ends, bookending the album with these the song sort of falls off, and then we just get like 30 seconds of heartbeats, just sort of an ominous beating heart, and we get that right as Maya stumbles into the art heist. And then the second playthrough of the album starts right there, and it really made me understand that this film is essentially cut in half. This is where the second act literally begins, right as the first playthrough of Dark Side of the Moon, the second that Dark Side of the Moon ends.
Okay, can I now reveal? I think I finally understood this, right?
Yeah, walk us through the moment where she walks in on the heist.
Okay, so I actually have to run it back a second, because in the previous heist scene to this, the NSA agent says to Vincent that they have moved up the time of shipping, and says that he had a guy on the inside who was supposed to tell him when that happened, but clearly he failed to do so. And at first I wrote that down because I hadn't caught it before, and I was going to make a joke about it being Lane. And then we watched the scene with Myrtle and the gross banana. I was like, oh, it's Myrtle. But in that scene, when she walks in to catch them, they're standing in that room with a gun pointed at a guy. That's the guy who was their inside man who failed to tell them they're moving. They're going to execute him in what they think is an empty presidential suite and leave his body there when they escape. That's why they're in the presidential suite that Lane thinks is empty and is throwing a party there.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and
Nice.
like, let me tell you, the reason it took 3 times to get there is
They cut all of that out.
This is what I think they cut out.
Right.
But that's the only way it makes sense that they are, because then Paul Blart goes to the presidential suite and they're not there because they have taken Lane and Maya back to the suite they are actually
So
staying
when she
in.
says, I saw something I shouldn't have, that's literally what she's referring to.
Yeah, I walked into this room.
An execution.
And that's why they take her somewhere else, the room they're actually staying in.
Okay, so just to clarify, they have booked a set of hotel suites
That they're staying in.
In addition to that, they are aware that the presidential suite is empty because a high roller checked out early, which
Correct.
is the same reason that Lane in an adjacent one is throwing a party.
Yes.
Brilliant detective work, Travis.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me as to why she can walk into a door and be where they are, is they are also using the empty suite,
Amazing.
not knowing there is a party. Now, it does fall apart because there is a room full of what appears to be 300 teenagers.
And a lot of music.
Literally one
and that
door away.
they haven't put it together.
I would also point out that the presidential suite, and I didn't notice it till this one, but it's pretty good. The presidential suite is at ground level because they walk out of it into this. There's a swimming pool outside the 2 sliding glass doors. Think about it.
No, because she has to rappel down the sheets.
No, that's the room.
No.
Okay, God, they really did such a bad job of
But that's what I'm
establishing.
saying. This is what I'm thinking.
You're right,
Is
that
like,
there was a murder that they cut out because it was too violent, right?
yeah,
Like,
I'm thinking
or
that there was a
something.
whole connective tissue of this heist that they cut out for time because they didn't want to cut any Kevin James stuff.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot more to this heist movie part that got cut.
Do you know what we did discover today before we started watching the movie is that beautiful little deleted scenes
There are deleted scenes.
tab.
Oh my God.
Which
Oh
we
my
have not
God.
watched, which we did not watch.
Maybe next year.
We're saving that.
It's just straight up. They probably deleted that shit so the movie would sync up to Dark Side of the Moon better. Okay, so Maya gets kidnapped and he talks to Vincent on the phone and is trying to be all threatening, and then he passes out from his hypoglycemia, and right as he hits the floor, On the Run starts going. Again, that sort of intense, just sort of pulsating heist song, and it is really, really good background music for Paul Blart crawling across the floor, trying just so intently to get this dripping ice cream cone in his mouth.
Which, once again, by the way, I did laugh my fucking ass off on. They just stay on his face so long as ice cream drips on it. It's so funny.
Is that the track with like an oscillating scale done on like an electric organ?
Yeah, it's the
That
it's
would add so much drama to
Yeah,
that moment.
And then the scene following that, after he's energized by these 4 drops of ice cream, is he stands up and then is sneaking through the high roller suites, like real good. By the way, at this point, we see Maya sort of locked up in the room with Elaine, and she says, "I think they're stealing art." Hey, Maya, you figured that out. So it takes Paul Blart. There's a scene of Paul Blart like banging his head against a painting, and then he's like, "Oh wait, they're stealing art." It literally takes him a half hour longer to figure this out than his daughter, who had 0 clues. I feel like.
I actually think that Paul Blart Mall Cop 3, it's got to end up being that Maya is like the main character, right? Who rescues Blart.
She's super cop. She's super cop.
She's fucking Maya Guyver. Because like she like busts open that door and it's like, what the fuck? How did you do that? I wouldn't know it. How did you do that? Paul Blart couldn't do that. What the fuck? Where have you been studying?
And then we get the scene, On the Run ends right as the maid, the old woman, comes into the bathroom and Paul Blart punches her right in the stomach. And the song is, there's literally 20 seconds of silence on the album at this point, which I was grateful for because it let me hear this scene a lot better.
By the way, this one has gotten me before. This one fucking slayed me this time.
Yeah,
oh boy, howdy.
Once again, big old room love.
It's not the act of violence against this this older woman. It is her completely chill response.
That
to the
whoever
whole
that
thing.
actor is who plays the old lady, she's fucking amazing.
She's fantastic.
She's great. It does make me sad that the last beat is she asks him if he wants turn down service, And he says no. And it's a real shame he didn't say yes, because that would have...
And just to bring everyone up to speed, if you've missed the other 2 episodes,
yes,
it's
please.
possible. So Paul Blart walks into a room and he obviously is in quite a heightened emotional state. He's looking for his daughter. Everything's happening around him. And he walks in a woman who is on, what do you call it, hotel room service, walks in, startles him.
Maid service.
Maid service, punches her directly to the solar plexus with the force of 1,000 fists, and she hits the ground very hard. This is a woman, I might add, who cannot be a day under 70 years old, and she is incredibly apologetic to him for having snuck up on him. And,
So good.
It's not his
moment of comedy.
Well, because it's not his room either.
No,
Yeah.
which just adds to it. It's a beautiful moment. Truly, it is.
There's also a nice moment where this is when the snow globe and the very, very good reaction from Lane happens, where Maya figures out that, I can short circuit the door using the wires in the snow globe. And literally while this scene is happening, Paul Blart is using a paperclip to short circuit a Segway to steal it. It's a nice little thing. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. A lot of it is more sort of on the nose of, hey, Maya and Paul actually have a lot in common, and there's so much that he is handed down to her through just him being a huge sack of shit, but also like probably one of the better mall security guards in America.
Top 10,
I don't know.
Let's.
I do want to say, just to give credit where credit, Jackie Benoit is the old lady, and she's been in House Bunny, Paranormal, Two Broke Girls, Love Don't Cost a Thing.
Great.
She's been in a lot of things.
Excellent.
I want to credit her.
Excellent. Thank you, Jackie. I want to. Is there anything else we want to say about this film?
The Old Banana got us again.
Old Banana is so very good by Myrtle.
Wait, are you trying to end it?
I'm just trying to get. We have a lot of other business to take. Like we got to talk about emails and the future of the show and everything.
I mean, I just think that we opened such a deep vein with the Shadow Man, and I feel like he really hasn't, gotten his earring in this episode. So I just want to gauge everyone's feelings about this overarching
Do you know
meta
what's sad
theory.
is I think that actually the movie began to work for me so genuinely that the part of my brain that generates metafictional layers to help enjoy and contextualize the product I'm consuming did not trigger, because I was just enjoying what
You did not require the escapism.
I really was not
Exactly.
looking for the Shadow Man this time.
I actually suspect that between last year and this year, the movie has changed. Like quantum physics, the movie is different now because of our observation. And this time we watched a different movie that I was able to enjoy more.
Tim did note that the Rotten Tomatoes rating for this film did appear to change
in real time.
in real time from the moment we started it to the minute we paused it in the middle.
I think it went from 6 to 5.
It did seem
But let me say this:
it doesn't support Travis's theory. But
is it possible that the Shadow Man's powers are such that he has started to make manifest in our reality?
Oh, definitely.
And we
It's
got onto
definitely.
him, and
Yeah.
He's escaping the upside down, and he's
right.
coming over into our plane.
If we're gonna wrap up our talk about the movie, I really do want to finish telling you the 3 or 4 other points of perfect dark side of the moon.
Let me hit one more thing, and then you can just run through it. There is a moment when Paul Blart is on the rooftop, and Eduardo walks up to him and says, "You just couldn't stay out of it." And I maybe it's him saying, like, out of my relationship with Davina, but it is said like we the audience, and I think it's supposed to be that the moment is supposed to be we the audience are like, oh, he's turned twist, Eduardo's in on it.
right.
But he doesn't know what's going on. So why would he say you just couldn't stay out of it? Could
He
you?
meant their relationship.
Yeah, but like, what a
Easy fix,
weird
Trev.
fucking way to.
Right,
close
yeah.
the case on that
Yeah,
one.
listen.
No,
there's
but-
a lot of real grounders in
No,
this
no,
film. that we-
no. I know why he said it. Why would he say it that way? It is though you just couldn't stay out of it, could you? Is what you say when someone has interrupted your dastardly plot.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair.
It's just such a weird word.
Can I just get Guy's hot take on Shadow Man? Where's your heart lie with this?
Look, I think by virtue of being surrounded by 3, goons who are yucking it up big style at the scene, it was hard for me to dive into the metafiction of the Shadow Man. I think that the scene, I would say there are 5 scenes which I'll go back to year after year and enjoy for their merits. And the Shadow Man whether or not it's because of the notion that he is the Shadow Man or whether or not it's just a man playing the piano in a tranquility garden, I can't imagine him ever not delivering what I need.
Guy, real quick diversion. What are those 5 scenes?
The banana.
The banana.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the banana. It's still so good.
The
He eats an old
banana it's killer.
And it's literally just a man named Myrtle eats a rotten banana.
And I also noticed this time it's the eye contact he makes with Barbara as they eat it.
That scene is funny in any movie. You can put that scene, you can
Any
literally
flick.
make that offer in any circumstance and it is hysterical because the banana is so brown.
KJ really brings the noise in that as well. His reaction.
That's one.
It's one.
Well, we got
The old lady in the solar plexus.
That's 2.
Paul Blart's mother being taken. I mean, it's just such efficient joke and storytelling, isn't it? Working in perfect synchronicity. It's a joy to watch.
That's 3.
The other 2, I'm trying to
Well,
remember.
you mentioned the Shadow
bird
Man.
fight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that's 4.
And then, shit, I can't actually remember what the 5th is, but you know it's in
It's
there
in
somewhere.
there.
I'll tell you in 2018.
All right. So the Paul Blart's getting chased around by hotel security. First of all, his bulletproof suitcase plan is the most insane thing I've ever seen. He gets away from this guy, and his immediate reaction is to climb inside of a bulletproof suitcase and wait for him at the top of some stairs.
That ends up with bullet holes in it.
I think
Yeah, it's not good.
Justin made the very astute observation that Paul Blart is banking a lot on bulletproof being an
a
actual
literal-
matter of fact as opposed to a brand name for a suitcase.
He gets away, runs through a door, and we see the Cirque du Soleil the moment that Great Gig in the Sky comes in. And this is, again, like a ballet of a performance of all of these dancers and everybody moving in beautiful slow motion. And Great Gig in the Sky is just a perfect, like the sax and the singing behind it is just so beautiful. And then we get the scene where there's some other shit that happens, but then he needs to go back to the gear showcase to get strapped.
Hold on,
Anybody
before you get there, Guy had his hand raised. So
The 5th one is the wife of the chief of security saying that when her child left for college, she put on McLaughlin and sniffed the sweaters.
yeah, Anna Gasteyer, very good.
Anna Gasteyer is a phenomenal performer.
Very good.
I also, once again, just because it's great costume design, I want to acknowledge, in the final scene Anna Gasteyer is in, you can see she was wearing a Celine Dion shirt. In that scene about the sweaters, her jacket is zipped up over it, but she's wearing a different Celine Dion shirt.
Oh, that's very good.
That's very good. And like, I was like, oh, there's clearly a face on there. You can see the hair. And then she's in a Celine. I'm like, oh shit, that's great.
Art department entertaining themselves on a pretty rough
That's
gig for a few months.
amazing.
right.
Anybody want to guess when he goes back to the gear showcase to get strapped what song is playing?
Money.
It's fucking money again! It's money again!
That's amazing.
The big fight scene's about to start between the mall cops and the fake hotel security, and right as that happens, Any Color You Like starts playing, and that song's just all of these like really slow kind of rock and synths over this like long slow motion fight scene, and it is really good sync. And then he goes up onto the roof. He has to get onto the roof of the other building, has this confrontation with Eduardo, or the mall cops show up, give him the zip line, and he grabs onto the zip line. Somebody pushes him, and brain damage starts again to underscore the final fight on the other rooftop, leading all the way to his triumphant victory as he's receiving his accolades from the hotel staff. And then the one of the last scenes in Vegas is him, telling Davina, I'm not right for you. Eduardo loves you. He's over there crying as, again, this triumphant song Eclipse is playing in the background. The hero's journey is over, and he's being very honorable about his victory. And that is how the album ends on that scene. I wish the movie had just ended right there because it would have been perfect. But a few more songs do play as we go in to the finale of the film. But
You've been on such a journey, Griff.
it was a fucking journey. There were a lot of instances of a scene starting right as a song started, and the song was a pretty good match for the scene. And then there were just a lot of somebody in the movie making a noise that really matched the noises being made in the album, because the album has a lot of these just sort of like vocal shouts and background noises and drum fills that are just like, I'm not kidding. It's a really moving experience.
The way the movie is edited and the type of movie it is would lend itself well to this as well, because it's sort of, we were talking about at the end of each scene, often the out for a scene would be Kevin James offers a limp gag, and then the scene sort of plods into an entirely different setting or circumstance. and that is a really nice, that chops up well with songs changing and whatnot. So
Yeah, on that note, the last song we hear in the movie is "Breathe in the Air Again," which is this really kind of slow, melancholy song. It's the song that underscores the beginning of the movie when all this terrible shit is happening to him. And while it might not seem like that matches the end because he meets the mounted police officer and she gives him her number, and then he gets kicked very hard by a horse with some bad CGI. Not bad CGI, but maybe unnecessary CGI. That's one practical I wanted is Kevin James being kicked very bad by a horse for the things that he did in the movie. While that may seem like a weird non-match, I actually really liked the movie ending on this sort of somber, kind of sad tone, because at the end of the day, he's still like, while he may have saved the day, the problems that existed in Paul Blart's life at the beginning of the movie are definitely still present at the end of the movie. Like, he's still a very lonely, maybe even delusional person. And this lack of resolution that you get from Breathe in the Air is like, it really makes you think like, wow, is he really better off than he was in frame one? I don't think so.
Oh shit. Okay. I just had an idea click in my, so watching it this time, speaking of the end of the movie, I think he has moved to LA to be closer to Maya. And the reason I think that is he says that he is okay with her going and then shows the check, which I think could easily be interpreted as I can afford to pay for UCLA. But I also think could be interpreted as, so like I can be there with you. And I thought Paul Blart Mall Cop 3, he's gotten a security job at a like movie studio.
Oh God, yes.
And like
Holy
he's
fucking
right?
shit.
And that's he has to like save a movie studio.
And we can get
It's
actual
like Westworld.
we can
but
do
Paul
my
Blart.
jam of actual celebrities playing themselves.
Yes.
And he has to save
Shaq.
And the movie culmination is they chase him and he ends up in a mall and it's like, now you're on my fucking ground.
No. It's a mall movie.
It's a mall movie set.
It's
Oh,
a-
holy
it's a
shit.
mall
Yes.
sound-
Yeah, it's a mall soundstage.
Yes.
Well, the fun thing is we'll never know because even if they release a third fucking one of these movies, I'm no more inclined to see
I
it.
haven't watched the first one.
I didn't
so.
watch the second one until I had to do
if you
this.
see Shaq is co-leading the third
I'm
movie,
in it. I'm in it.
there you go.
Rush Hour
I'm in
3
that.
starring Paul Blart and Shaq.
I have an email here
Okay.
that correlates to the first movie, relates to the first, whatever. Chris asks, I haven't seen either Blart film and probably never will, but love the podcast. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Fuck you, Chris. I just wanted to be different.
Okay.
I was going to make that offer too, but thought better of it.
Is Blart's first wife ever mentioned? His second wife vomited herself out of the marriage. But what about the mother of his daughter? Is she mentioned at all, or was she a virgin birth? I still think there would need to be a mother in there.
Yeah,
There is a picture, right? Isn't
Sorry,
there?
is this guy's problem that he might have had a baby out of wedlock?
No,
that
but
what he
that's,
can't
I
wrap
think
his
he's
head
more
around?
asking about the relation, whatever the relationship was prior to.
I'm not. I refuse to speculate on the events of Paul Blart Mall Cop 1.
I refuse to even read the Wikipedia page for Paul Blart Mall Cop 1.
Yes. But
And what's the custody arrangement that Maya's going with him to this thing? Wait,
We
the
don't know.
mother's still alive. She didn't die.
how do you know? Well,
yeah,
no,
we don't know. The Shadow Man
no.
definitely would have. I mean, the Shadow Man had the capabilities and the motive.
Taken everything else from him.
Maya might have been created as like, the Lady Smurf, like Gargamel created that to try to corrupt Paul Blart, but in the end, Paul Blart was such a positive force that Maya ended up being good. We haven't seen the first movie.
Maya may not even exist. Maya
Yeah.
might just be a sort of mental fabrication.
She may be an
placed in-
interdimensional key that has
placed
taken
in-
human form.
placed
that
in
the
Paul's
sole-
mind by the Shadow Man.
The sole reason Smurfette exists.
Yeah, that stumped me too, dude. Are you for
In the
real, Travis?
movie, it's in the new movie.
No, that's true in the original one. Smurfette was created by Gargamel.
Like
That's why
Eve.
there's only one.
Like original
Well,
sin.
why there's only one woman Smurf. She was the creation of Gargamel in I
What
think like the
the
first or second episode.
fuck?
Yeah, they talk about
No, it's
that in
not
the new
great.
in the
How
new
did
flick.
all of the
Wow.
other Smurfs come to be?
They were created by God.
They are God's
And
children.
they're immortal.
Beautiful blue children.
Any other great emails, Trav?
Yeah, we have one from Grace, and Grace says, "I just listened to the first two installments of Till Death Do Us Part, the eternal podcast of pain, and enjoyed it very, very much. So much, in fact, that if you inevitably run out of material and end up reading this email, I will donate $400 to any charity, organization, or individual you guys settle on. Take your pick, and I'll send the receipts. If you don't read this email, you're basically stealing $400 from a good cause. Shame
Really
on
holding
you.
us over a barrel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, as well. In the interest of time, can I throw a suggestion out?
Yes.
Because we made a donation on our podcast because we're nice guys. Not really. It was actually for some other reason. I can't remember. Whatever. Doctors Without Borders. A great
Yeah, that's a good one.
organization.
Done, for sure.
International. They do great work.
Excellent.
Medicine Sans Frontières.
And then the rest of this does say,
in the name of Myrtle, the banana man.
Yeah. And this also says, to future me, who has undoubtedly forgotten about this email and the ensuing promise. Remember that time you thought it'd be funny and positive to promise $400 to these silly good boys? Time to pony up, you dumb motherfucker.
Hey, just donate what you can. We're not going to hold you
Myself
to...
up over a barrel.
Thank you,
But
Greg.
please do it in the name of Myrtle the Banana Man.
Yeah. In fact, if everybody wants to kick in some cash to Doctors Without Borders in the name of Myrtle the banana man, I think that's
appreciated.
choice.
That would really do it for me.
We also got a lot of emails from people just telling us, like, keep up the good work, or more often than that, what were you thinking?
Well, we didn't need those this
Yeah,
time.
it's
Because
a
Watch
fun-
3
it's
was
a-
a fucking peach.
I think we can concretely say after this watch, and we'll never, I think, revoke this. It's a good film. It's a good funny
I will
comedy.
say, I'm not going to judge.
Guy, I've never seen Guy look more incredulous than his goddamn
I
life.
am no art critic. I'm no film critic, so I'm not going to judge whether or not it's an artistic film. But I enjoyed it. Damn it, it's an enjoyable film. I had a
Now,
good
I will
time.
say-
Hang out with friends.
I suspect that Watch 4 is gonna huff some serious ass. I think Watch 4
Well,
is.
that's what's going to happen is we're going to start building up Watch 3 in our minds. We're like, it's not so bad. And then we'll watch 4 like by ourselves, missing out on like our baby's first words or something.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for this great show. You want to take us home, Travis?
Sure. You can email us till death do us blart. Follow us on Twitter at gmail.com. Till death do us blart at gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at deathBlart. Tell a friend. Happy American Thanksgiving.
Please share this show because the way it works, like we don't get a lot of subscribers and stuff. So it's just kind of word of mouth. So please help us spread the word.
Be sure to check out The Worst Idea of All Time. Tim and Guy watch the same bad movie every week for 52 weeks.
Is there anything else that won't be ending soon that you guys want to plug?
I host a podcast called Hosting with a very funny man from Australia called Carlo Ritchie. It's all about us hosting one another in our respective countries. It's very silly.
Oh, that's fun.
Tim?
I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, I started a podcast network.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Go
that's
to
worth plugging.
littleempirepodcasts.com.
Great. And we do My Brother, and Me, and a bunch of other stuff. You can find them all at macroshows.com. And we'll be back next year, hopefully.
Say the tagline.
What's the tagline?
Say the tagline.
You don't remember the tagline?
Not
It's-
today.
it's death.
Oh, we got to sync it up.
Okay.
Hey, but also, sorry, just before we put a button on this, should we maybe name, in the untimely event of one of our demises, who's going to replace it?
I've already said mine. Stuart Wellington from the Flophouse podcast.
I said, who was it? I had
It's Charlie, isn't that what you said?
Charlie. That's right. My daughter, Charlie. No matter how old, in case I die.
We spent
we'll
yesterday
take-
afternoon with Charlie. I think she'd be a welcome addition to the
Yeah,
group.
she'll be great. I need
keep
to
me
hang in for
crossed
like
to beer.
5 more years, men, for that.
Either
to
that
be-
or the episodes are going to become 2 minutes long.
Yeah, right.
Guy,
Well,
don't do this.
as I recall, last year I refused to acknowledge my own mortality.
Don't do it again.
And this year, I would once again like to refuse to acknowledge my own mortality.
You fucking schlub.
Tim, you were kind of a moving target. Did you?
Yeah, well, I put Nick Sampson down, and I think I'll renew his contract.
Okay, Griffin?
Oh, from Walkout Boys podcast. There's your shout out, Nick.
I'm trying to figure out if I can get Kevin James or somebody, maybe a less featured player.
You won't be able to get
from the-
anybody. You'll be dead.
No. I would arrange it beforehand. Like I would have a living will going. The guy who plays
You're
Vincent
pushing
is so
this
good.
into joke territory, and I need you to take this fucking seriously.
No,
Please
no,
do
I'm
not
th-
leave
really
me with the
think about
burden
it.
of getting Kevin James on this show.
Think about it. Not Kevin James. I'm saying the guy who plays Vincent, who's very
Neil
good and
McDonough.
everything.
Neil McDonough.
Neil McDonough.
Neil McDonough. That would be sick. I think that would move the show, the podcast, into a new sort of
I bet we could get the person who played Lane easy.
easy. So, Lane would be fantastic. Even
Okay,
just
then
I
pick
want the show to
one
move
and
into
fucking
it.
pick one, and let's spend the next year trying to get them on the horn.
I'm trying to think of if we said anything mean about Lane.
Well, I mean, the character, but not the actor.
The
Actor does a
good job.
Actor does a great job, but
Yeah,
Lane is a spectral pickup artist.
Or maybe Maya. I think Maya would be I just want somebody who can. I think it would move this podcast into new territories where it's not just 5 people dunking on the podcast. Maybe we could go behind the scenes a little bit more, find out why the banana was so brown.
Can we have Rachel?
Rachel refuses to watch the movie, and I don't even think that my untimely death would change that.
I struggle to see how that
Okay.
would be a sweetener for what would
Rainey
be
Rodriguez. Is that your choice, Griffin?
I don't
is that
know.
Maya?
I
Yeah.
gotta think about it.
Okay, fine. Well,
Now that Griff's been put on blast, I do feel like I should bequeath this podcast to someone.
And
I would like to give it to friend of mine and yours, Alice Sneddon.
nice.
She does not know this, and whether or not she accepts the offer is up to her entirely. But as it stands, between now and next American Thanksgiving, I will have a word with her.
of fame.
Bonus of the Heart fame.
okay. Well, there you have it, folks. Travis, take us home.
Not today, Death.
Not today, death.
What about DB Woodside?